Hey, what's up, gentlemen and ladies? We're down to one baseball game per night with the World Series up in effect. So we'll just kind of run through the showdown slate, gives us something to talk about right now. Just have a little fun with it. I'm going to assume, who do you think the public's going for here, Dodgers or Rays? Because I'm just assuming it's the Rays.
It's got to be the Rays. I mean, of course, it's the Rays.
I would assume so. Not as bad as if it had been Astros Dodgers. I think it would have been like 99% Dodgers, but that's just not what it is.
No, it's not.
How happy were you when the Rays pulled this game off?
When the Rays pulled the game off against the Astros?
Yeah.
I was really happy. I definitely did not want to see Houston in there, man. I think Tampa's got a very good shot in this series, don't you?
It is hard. Like, even if you just look at the betting numbers, people just assume the Dodgers win. This Tampa team just keeps winning. There's something about them, right? Like, they are just winners. And I will say, side note though, I kind of thought the shortened playoffs, the weird events that we would get some sort of funky World Series. The two best teams made it.
Yeah, the two best teams made it. You're right. It's it weirdly turned out that way. Which, you know what? It took a lot of the Braves had to overcome some adversity. The Rays had to overcome some adversity. It's hard to win that game 7 after losing, being up 3-0. Were they up 3-0?
Tampa was up 3-0.
And then they lost 3-0.
Or was it 3? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was 3-0.
There's a lot of pressure on you in that game 7,
Oh, yeah. But they got the best game 7 pitcher of all time, Chuck Morton, to come in there.
So that's a big reason why I think the Rays are live in this series is their starting pitching is better than the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers are maybe the only team that can the Dodgers are deep. They have a lot of pitchers, and that's a strength of the Rays. So it's just going to be a good series. I think it's a pitching heavy series, and it makes me lean the Rays, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for the Rays for sure. But side note, before we get back into the baseball stuff, what do you think of Tua being named the starting quarterback? That seems odd to me. With the Buffalo losing 2 in a row and Miami surging, I cannot believe you make this move right now with how well Fitzpatrick is playing.
I was just about to ask you about that. I find it exact. I have the same read you do. Fitzpatrick coming off, played very well in San Francisco. They rolled last week. The only thing I can say about this, my only read on it and why the only thing I can the only reason I could see it making sense is that they're really seeing something from him in practice and think that he's really the guy. And to your point, they think he's going to be better than Fitzpatrick right now.
I mean, I'm not there in practice. You're not there in practice. That was the exact same point that I was going to make. But if he comes in and he flounders, I'm sorry. If I'm a Miami Dolphins football player and we are surging, watching Buffalo lose 2 in a row and look very, very human in the meantime, and Tua comes in and just absolutely poops the bed, and we missed the playoffs by a game or something, I'm pissed because with that AFC East finally being up in the air after the Patriots have won it some, 7 centuries in a row or whatever it's been, and we got a chance to surge and make it, I would be pissed.
I agree, but I also, I kind of buy what the Dolphins are selling as an organization. And, I don't think they make this move after thinking about it and talking it out unless Tua's really showing something. And Tua's really good. All the hurt last year was all the tank for Tua. So, I mean, listen, I agree with your point that I would be pissed, and it also makes no sense. The only sense of it I can make is that he's balling in practice.
Yeah, man. If you were 1-5, I'd be all in on this move. It would make a ton of sense. But at 3-3, surging, we'll see. Revisionist history is going to be easy on this one. If Tua comes in and plays just as well as Fitzpatrick or better, you look genius. If he plays terrible, you don't look good. I will say, though, for the sake of the Dolphins coaching and everybody making this mistake, Ryan Fitzpatrick is exactly the type of guy who can get benched right here. And if Tua stinks it up, can come right back in where he left off.
I agree with that. The bigger worry for me is benching Tua after you start him.
Agreed. Guys, before we get into the actual DK picks, don't forget to get your money in on an overlay. I started looking into the shootout because the progressive contests aren't up quite yet. And I got a couple of picks on here I like a lot, i.e., give me Matt Stafford over Andy Dalton. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I like Roethlisberger over Tannehill this week. I'm excited to talk this one out for you in a little bit. The matchup shot continues to be profitable and a lot of fun to play in. So give it a little look-see. And if you go ahead and make a deposit. Send me that screenshot so we can give you a free membership to the 5-pack. But let's talk DraftKings now.
Yeah, let's get it, man. I'm actually excited to talk this out.
Yeah, you seem pretty excited about this slate. Like, what's your overall theme of it?
So I think that these slates are this slate in particular is interesting. Like, the pitchers are not, and this is projections, honestly, they're not getting as much love as you'd think because the best hitters are priced like around what the pitchers are. And for me, like, I'm sorry, I know people are talking about like Kershaw's playoff problems. I love him here.
Ooh, so I might be a little bit opposite. I would kind of like the idea of stacking Tampa right here.
Well, Tampa has a bunch of cheap bats, so I don't think that's going to be necessarily different because you look at the bats. If you want to play like Kershaw and Glass now, you got to roster a bunch of cheap Tampa bats.
Sure, and I can always get on board rostering 2 good pitchers, and Glasnow and Kershaw are both good pitchers.
Yeah, they're both very good. I think this is a definite pitcher's duel here.
Okay, I mean, we haven't seen these 2 teams meet up yet. 9-10 wouldn't surprise me. 1-0 wouldn't surprise me. I think we have to watch this one play out. So there's not a strategic. What's that?
9-10 would very much surprise me.
Well, does it ever surprise you if the Dodgers put up 9 or 10 runs?
It would very much surprise me here.
Okay. You're not a big Glasnow fan, so that's kind of surprised me. You don't think of that as a possibility.
Well, I mean, listen, game 1 of the World Series after like they just played 2 days ago. I would be surprised if they put up like double-digit runs here. I mean, I would be surprised, I would say, almost anytime anyone puts up double-digit runs. I know that the Dodgers would be on the highest likelihood to do it, but
I think we're talking semantics on the word surprise right now. Surprise and expect are 2 different things. I don't expect them to go off, but I'm not surprised by it because of how good their offense is.
Yeah, I would be surprised by it, to be honest.
Okay. Who are some of your favorite bats on this one?
Honestly, I don't love the bats. My favorite bats are Jock Peterson, who's seeing the ball well, has been in the middle of the Dodgers lineup. He's very affordable. I like Kershaw. I like Glasnow. And then I like the idea of using a couple relief pitchers. I don't think the bats do much of anything here.
Okay. But I'm assuming you're going to play a bat or 2. Is there any, like, out of all the expensive hitters, is there a specific bat that you like?
Probably Muncy Bellinger, left-handed power against Glasnow.
I do like Bellinger. Obviously coming off that big game-winning home run in Game 7. He's got to be feeling himself. He looked better and better as the series progressed. He's already got a couple career home runs off of Glasnow, and Glasnow gives up lefty power, so that works for me. But, again, he's another one of these guys. I like him, but if he's 0 for 4 or 4 Ks, I'm not going to come on here tomorrow and be like, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's just interesting. It's just interesting, like, how the pricing on this slate breaks out. Like, the most popular projected player on the slate is Yandy Diaz because he's 5,200 and projected to be in the middle of the Tampa lineup.
Yeah, I don't like the slate as much as you, but that's probably because at this point of the year, you're more into the MLB DFS side of things. Also, I have just been on a collection of like 1 to 2 point losses, like all over the board for like 2 straight weeks. So I look at today as like a great day to just stay off of DFS and take that little cooling period that I always mention to people. Like if you just get into a bad run, like even last night, I had, things wrapped until the Dalton Cooper touchdown, kicked me out of the money on that one. And like little things like that. So it's like, for me, it's a great day to let's talk about it and have some fun, but take your money off the table and walk away for 5 minutes.
Well, did you have Drake?
I didn't have Drake, but I would have been okay kind of going back to look at it if Dalton hadn't hooked up with Cooper in that situation because of like ownership and things like that. No, I didn't have Drake, but I wasn't trying to win a GPP. I was just trying to get into the money in cash lineups.
Yeah, well, I didn't know if like you would have still cashed without that. I definitely needed that Dalton to Cooper though. Got me in the cash. I was the last 2 lineups cashing in the 153 entry max, so that was big for me. And I'll say this: the reason I like this slate so much is I think that because the good hitters are so expensive and the pitchers are basically priced like the hitters, the pitchers are not getting as much love as they should. And I personally think that if you captain Kershaw and roster Glasnow, you could get zeros from basically everywhere else and still be close to cashing.
Okay. So you think Kershaw's your guy right here. Why do you like him so much tonight?
I just think kind of the pressure's off after beating the Braves, after they were down 3-1. Game 1 of the World Series, the Rays strike out a lot. People are like off him because of the Kershaw playoff narrative. I'm not buying into that as much as others. I like Kershaw a lot here. He's really good is why I like him.
I mean, he's obviously has a lot of upside. because you're right. The Rays do strike out a lot. Oddly, Clayton Kershaw is statistically the worst pitcher in playoff history compared to what his regular season stats are. Oddly, though, which makes no sense to me, he's actually been like really good in closeout spots, which you wouldn't think would make sense. Does that matter for today? Not really, right? I mean, if you like him today, I can understand it. If you don't like him today, I understand that too. But like for a guy who chokes under pressure, he's oddly been better when there's more pressure, which is so weird.
Yeah, kind of tells you that like there's a lot of noise and all that stuff.
Sure, but I mean, he does have like a decade plus experience of being significantly worse.
Well,
in the
how
playoffs.
do you explain it that he's better in the you know
It's
what I
a
mean?
weird statistical anomaly, right?
I mean, I just think like there's a lot of noise there. Like there's such a small sample size in the playoffs. He's facing much better lineups. Yeah,
the better lineups mean something. That does mean something, right? You're not going up. You can't cut up the San Diego Padres from 8 years ago that were terrible, right? You don't get 4 or 5 starts against them, or you get to pad your stats and stuff like that. That does make a difference.
For me, like the only reason not to like Kershaw is all of that other stuff, which is noise. Like there's every reason to think that he's going to be the highest projected player on this slate. And if not, it's best now. Why wouldn't it be?
So this is a spot where you and I tend to have a little bit of disagreement, which is funny because you love narratives in the regular season, and I seem to like them more in the playoffs than you do. So we can kind of cross paths on that one.
This stuff, I don't love. I don't though. Like you're putting words in my mouth. Like I don't love that stuff as much as you make it seem like I do.
Okay. I'm not as big into Kershaw as you are today, but I will make this point for him. Like, do you really want to bet on a hitter to score more points than him?
No, I don't. And a lot of people will.
I don't want to either. Even if Kershaw is bad like he was last start and comes in with 6.5 points, that's going to outscore probably the majority of hitters.
Probably not if he only gets 6 points because that means Tampa's hit him.
Sure, but I mean, he's still got 6.5 points is still better than a lot of hitters are going to get.
Yeah.
Is it worth the salary? Probably not, but there's still going to be a whole bunch of hitters with 5 points or less.
Yeah, but at that point, you're going to need Tampa if you think he gets 6 points.
Sure. I mean, they do strike out a lot. So there is like, he can not be good, but still get his 5Ks or 6Ks or something like that pretty easily.
Sure.
So there is a safety right there. So, I mean, I don't like Kershaw as much as you do, but if I made a roster tonight, I'd still have him in it.
Yeah, he's going to be my captain if I make 3 lineups and 2 of 3.
Any chance the Rays bow out tonight, he can face the Brewers and toss up another 45 spot.
Right? I mean, listen, the Rays, we just saw Valdez pitch really, really well against them. And I like Kershaw a lot in this spot.
Yeah, if Valdez was pitching, I'd like him every single time. I became a real big fan of his throughout the playoffs. He's good. He's just like, man, I think you got something there if you're the Houston Astros.
So would you like if it was Valdez or Kershaw in the same spot, you would like Valdez over Kershaw tonight?
God, it's so hard to buy into recency bias versus a guy who's one of the greatest pitchers of all time.
And I'm not even talking about like DFS ownership. I'm just talking about like who you want on the hill.
God, that's a good question. Yes, I would take Valdez over Kershaw for DFS. I don't know about for real life, but for DFS, I'd want him right now.
Okay. I mean, I will say I can't say you're crazy for saying that. I disagree, but I can't say you're crazy.
Yeah, I definitely turned into a big Valdez fan throughout the playoffs watching. He pitched very, very well, and that's probably way too much recency bias, but I was very, very impressed by him.
For me, though, it is recency bias, but like I buy it more with a pitcher than I do like an Arozarena.
Sure, like is Arozarena, like I joking around, I sent you that meme from Instagram yesterday that about how Arozarena already has better playoff experience than Mike Trout at 1/30th of the salary per year or whatever. Clearly, we would still take Mike Trout over Arozarena, but kudos to the young man for one of the best stretches of the playoffs that I can remember.
Yeah, agreed. We'll see if he can continue it here. And like, I feel like that's the other problem with bats on this slate is choosing the bats is really hard. And if you roster 1 or 2 of the expensive bats, it's not like you can just stack whoever you want. The bats are expensive, the good ones.
For sure. You can play both of these pitchers in captain one, though, and probably get to starting offensive players, i.e. Jock Peterson, Yandy Diaz, Manuel Margot, and then, Hunter Renfroe.
This is a very popular line.
Not late low. Hunter Renfroe, whatever it might be. Edwin Diaz, if he makes the lineup today. Or Edwin Rios, if he makes the lineup today. I'd have interest in him.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you're a big Rios fan. I remember a few days ago you actually legitimately put him down in the write-up as a hard recommend. He homered. Quietly, for everybody who doesn't know about him, if he's in the lineup today, he may be cheap, but he's lefty power, and his 10 home runs this year, that's not shocking. This guy has real power.
Most highest home run per at bat percentage in MLB history.
Yeah, he is a high nominee for a home run tonight if starting, because he matches up well with what Glasnow gives up. He's cheap. Clearly the moment's not too big for him, as he was really good in the last series and very limited at bats. So again, he makes a lot of sense, because a home run, that helps so much in these showdown slates.
Oh, you need it, basically, if it's a low-scoring game.
If he's in there, I'll take him over Hunter Renfroe every day and twice on Sunday, because he's also got a better opportunity to be in there for a longer period, in my opinion.
I just agree with you all the way around there.
Yeah, Renfroe might get 2 at-bats against Kershaw, who's also dominated him throughout his career. But then if they bring in a righty, Tampa Bay is quick to pinch hit.
Yeah, agreed.
Tampa Bay is so deep with good players that, Renfroe can hit for home runs, but, you can easily bring in somebody else who's also really good.
Yeah, and I like Kershaw a lot. So these cheap Tampa guys obviously work as fillers because you got to go somewhere. But it's just interesting that the Dodgers hitters aren't going to be getting a lot of love. And I do agree with you. The Dodgers are still the best, right there, the best offense in baseball. So if they had a good day here, I'm not going to be surprised at all.
Right. Glasnow gets strikeouts, but let's not pretend he hasn't given up 6 home runs in 19 points in the playoffs. So Seager, Bellinger, Muncy, one of these guys probably tags him tonight.
This is definitely why I like Kershaw more than Glasnow. And the narrative would say otherwise, but if I had to pick one pitcher that got blown up here, it would be Glasnow.
I'm not going to argue with that one. Again, you like Kershaw more than I do, but I don't argue your point at all. I'm not sitting here saying I think Glasnow is going to score 10 more points than him. I think realistically, if I play this lineup tonight, I'm going to play a cash game, because that's what I play for showdowns. And I'll play both pitchers, because I'll go back to the same statement. Glasnow's got 25, 23, 8, and 9-point performances in the playoffs. Yes, the 8 points, his floor that we've seen, and I know that was only in 2.1 innings, isn't very good for his salary, but it still beats most of the hitters on the slate.
Yeah. On showdown slates, yes. You need those points. Unless that's not to say there aren't showdown slates where that doesn't work, but yeah, I'm with you. You, even if he got 10 points, you're going to need that. I'm with you 100% there.
Well, just think about the best hitters in this game: Bellinger, Rosarina, Betts, and Seager. Yes, they all average more than 8 points. But do you ever feel comfortable betting a hitter to go for more than 8 points? Because I don't.
No, same. And that's why that's why I like this slate, because I think people are going to force hitters too much. That's not to say that it's going to work out every time, because you said at the beginning, the Dodgers could go off. If they go off here, then especially in tournaments, that's what you're going to need. But I'm really of the opinion that ownership is just not going to pitching as it should be, and that's a big edge.
It is. The flip side of that is it's not like the pitchers are going to be 5%. They're still going to be at least 50.
They're going to be 50, though, where I think they should be 80.
Yeah, and maybe they will be.
Maybe they will be, but don't you think they should be?
Yeah, that's where it's always the interesting question within the industry is when you see ownership projections, no matter where you look, they're always a little bit different. You can have your best common sense points, and then both can be wrong, right? I think they'll be over 50% owned. Is that 51 or 90? I have absolutely no idea. For me, the common sense approach is roster the pitchers, but that doesn't mean I'm right. And I can completely see why somebody else would be well, I want Seager and Bellinger in my lineup, and a Rosarina or Betts.
Right?
So
I also agree with you. I think they're going to be higher than 50%. But I also think that like they should be like how this slate breaks down. Most of the time this game's played, like you're going to need the pitchers in both your lineups like 85, 90% of the time.
Well, I mean, just think about it from this sense, guys. When you're going to set your lineups tonight, I'm harder on Kershaw in the playoffs than you are, no doubt about it. We've talked about this over for years, and that's just the nature of how we view this thing. I still want to put Kershaw in my lineup. So, like, that's for me, like, I think most people look at this slate, and maybe they're not super excited about Kershaw, but they know darn well if they skip him and he even goes out for 18, it's really difficult to win without him.
I also think there's an edge in like not captaining. Well, because I like Kershaw a lot tonight. I think that's another edge is captaining Kershaw. Because like I mentioned, I see Yandy Diaz because he's very cheap, probably hitting cleanup for Tampa, getting a lot of love in the captain spot. Like I think that's an easy 0. Like obviously
right?
He could get a hit, like obviously because it's a hitter, but like I mean that's an easy 0, like a lot of times. So I think that's a big edge. Don't you think so?
I would never captain a guy like Yandy Diaz in this situation, which is weird for me to even think of people doing that because when you watch the football showdowns, people force good players into the captain spot every single time.
I actually noticed a little bit of and at least on Sunday night when I played, I actually noticed a little bit of the opposite where I saw like a few Josh Reynolds captains, Cam Akers captains.
Well, few, but like when you look at the football series, it's usually like if you looked at like Zeke and Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, they eat up the majority of the captain spots right now. I'm not saying people won't go differently, and you're also only really playing GPPs, so people try to get a little bit different right there. If you look at like the high-end like cash games, people are, and even still most of the GPPs, people go towards the good, safer players in their captain spot. They'd rather punt down low with Yandy Diaz, which will be in a lot of lineups, but I think he's going to be in the utility spot, more than the captain spot because there's so many guys. Of course, that's the way it'll break down. Like if you take Margot or Diaz or Peterson, like you mentioned, like you can't take a 0 in your captain spot, and one, you'll never win a GPP, and you're probably not even cashing in cash games.
Yeah, agreed. I mean,
so give me a pitcher.
Definitely give me a pitcher. It sounds like maybe you like Glasnow better there.
No, not necessarily. I don't love Glasnow either, but what I do love is not eating a fucking 0 in my captain spot with a hitter. Like Glasnow and Kershaw can be tonight, but at least still get you some points. You know what I mean? Like they have to be terrible. And I may be hard on Kershaw in the playoffs, but I still think he's getting you over 8 points tonight, whereas I'm not betting on any hitter going over 8 points. And there's cheap enough hitters. We already showed you how to captain Kershaw and Glasnow. You still get 4 guys that are hitters, like not backups, not even, bullpen guys you're guessing on. You can get 4 other hitters.
Yeah, and but even then in tournaments, like I don't even need 4 other hitters. There's a couple bullpen guys I like. And I also think Kershaw goes for more than 20. And bullpen guys I like specifically, Kenley Jensen is getting like a decent amount of love here. He's 4,400, and I wouldn't play him with your money. He's in the doghouse. Like he's not very good anymore, in my opinion. He's not going to pitch in any high leverage situation. I love going to Brewstar Gratterall, who's pitched a bunch. He's got high heat stuff. I think that he's better than Jensen right now. He obviously had that one blow up, but other than that, he's been really solid. And I love him at 1% compared to Jensen 17%.
There's plenty of good relief pitchers on the Tampa Bay Rays as well. And I think, Nick Anderson has not been great throughout the playoffs, so maybe that's not where you want to go. He does pitch multiple innings, though, from time to time, which is something if you're looking for upside, it could be there. Although he's not looked good lately, so maybe that's not where I want to put my money.
No, a guy I was looking at from Tampa, and I got to look a little harder, is Jose Alvarado. I know he wasn't pitching great, but I think he's pitched decent his last couple outings, yes, and he's a lefty, which the Dodgers struggle with.
Sure. And clearly he's not on the 60-day IL, so.
No. Oh, no, but it says he will not be part of the World Series roster, so never mind there.
Let's see here. Just the pitchers. Yeah, I'll probably have to look through this one a little bit further.
I mean, and I'll say this. The reason that I think that the pitchers are, Aaron Loop, are in play here, like, is because of it's risky. And in cash games, I wouldn't do that because you're like, honestly, a lot of times they're going to get a 0. But if they pitch like the guys that you choose, they'll outscore almost all the hitters down in that range. And I think you can still win with a 0 from most of those guys.
And with so many cheap hitters on here, people aren't going to be using the relievers as much. Like there are slates in the way DraftKings has priced down baseball showdowns before that there just aren't anybody available to you that's cheap, so you have to use a reliever. But in a game like this with so many cheap hitters, like I can't picture people using relievers.
I agree. I mean, in cash games especially.
You know, you got Blake Treinen.
The other thing that it does do, though, if you roster like, you know, at Treinen, you can get up to one of those like bigger bats.
Sure. Nobody's pitched in a couple of days. Everybody in both bullpens is very, very viable. So if you want to spend more time looking at this stuff today, guys, just go through and look to see how many times these guys appeared. Pedro Baez appeared in 4 of the 7 games against Atlanta. Yeah. Good odds that he could, you know, tonight.
And they trust him clearly, yes.
Yeah, he hasn't pitched in 2 days. He's obviously one of their better relievers. They trust him. I mean, Pedro Baez may not be like, he's not going to go out there and get you 15 tonight unless he somehow K's the side, goes for 1 2/3 and gets the dub. But that shit's probably not going to happen.
Probably not.
So I'm with you on this one. And sometimes relievers get heavily utilized because they're needed. They're not needed tonight because you can have a Jock Peterson who should be in the middle of the lineup tonight.
Yes. He is my favorite cheap bat, personally.
Yeah.
I like Rios a lot, too. So
yeah, if Rios makes the lineup, I know he didn't make it the last couple of days. I like him a lot, too.
Yeah, so both those guys for sure.
I mean, that's about it. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's a great day to walk away if you're coming off of, you know, like me. It's been a rough 2 weeks with close losses, and those are the ones that hurt. So take a day, and I try to preach this, and don't chase. Because I know I chase Sunday night, which is something I try to tell people not to do, and not something I do a lot of. And I massively regret it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I chased Sunday night and I chased last night, even though I didn't even need to chase in the showdown last night because my lines ended up. I had John Brown and like, you know, I used that line I sent you and he got a 0. So I was like, damn, like I need to play the showdown now. But Hardman got 0 and Tyreek Hill wasn't very good and no one was very good. You know what I mean? So like I still ended up barely cashing, obviously. Didn't need to chase. And you know, I was pissed at the end of the night, even though my lines cashed in the main slate because I threw away money in the showdown.
I also want to say I thought this is a side note as I was watching the games last night. And what's difficult, not just for me and you, because we have to try to give recommendations to other people, but for all of you guys out there playing, is one of the reasons I told you I moved from A.J. Brown to Chase Claypool over the weekend was, you know, you read about like there was going to be some rain and whatnot. Clearly, it wasn't much, and it had 0 effect on the Texans and Titans game, which blew up offensively. The flip side of that was the reports coming out of Buffalo yesterday weren't significantly different than what I read on the Tennessee game. Only difference was that game got worse, and the rain clearly affected guys like all up and down the passing game, right? Josh Allen. Even Mahomes wasn't great because Clyde Edwards was so great. But if the weather like flips, which again, not only can we not predict, like weathermen can't predict that.
No, I mean, I did feel lucky to cash with Dalton. I mean, great call with Christian Kirk. Obviously, I wouldn't have done anything without him in 2 lines. But it was weird, like that first game, that so many, like Brown, Hardman, both got 0 and they were the same price. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, the weather clearly had an effect on the game. If you watch that game, you know exactly what we're talking about. But we didn't know what the weather's going to be like before the game starts. For all I know, that little sprinkle means nothing, and that game blows up into 38-35.
And Dallas is bad. Like, Dallas is a bad football team. They play fundamentally bad football. And
you know the biggest problem there, right?
What'd you say?
Do you know the biggest problem in Dallas?
Jerry Jones?
Mike McCarthy.
Oh.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can go to Jerry Jones that higher. He wants a guy he can control. Mike McCarthy's a terrible football coach.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, I know you made the point about that, like Jerry Jones has the power, but what a bad decision. And honestly, watching that game last night, like Andy Dalton is not the type of quarterback to have when your defense is that bad. He's competent, but he's so frustrating, man. He's so frustrating.
I will say to be nice to Dalton and even Mike McCarthy, who I'm never nice to, Zeke blew that game for them. So he put them in a really bad situation because they're not a team that can come from behind without Dak like that. So we'll put that one on Zeke yesterday, but that doesn't change the fact that Dalton's not that guy and Mike McCarthy blows.
A big problem for Dallas, I think, is their O-line problems.
They're so beat up.
Yeah, I think that's really hurt. I mean, I almost felt like every time Dalton dropped back, like a strip sack fumble was about to happen. Like every single time, the pocket collapsed immediately. I want to ask you one more thing about this slate, though, because I forgot to ask you earlier. So when you roster Kershaw and Glasnow like this, one thing that's really hard to do is roster like an expensive hitter. So a couple questions. One, if you had to pick one, who would it be? And two, like, do you think that's viable to like roster these two with one of the really expensive hitters?
No, it's not viable because as soon as you put Bellinger in there, or a Rosarino or Muncy or whatever, like it just isn't going to happen for you. Unless like Kiermaier's in the lineup and then you play him, which you don't really want to do. And now, even with him, it's not possible.
Well, you got to play a reliever.
Sure. And even a 4K reliever, let's just pretend this guy's a reliever for a second. I still don't know that you're able to get there. You're not. Unless it's like Kiki Hernandez, who won't be in the lineup, is in the lineup, and Perez is in the lineup, which won't be.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that's going to really lower the ownership of the big hitters, too. So it's just an interesting slate where the bad hitters are going to be really popular all over this slate.
And again, if you want to win like a tournament and like, say you go with like Seager, Betts, Rosarina, Bellinger, this isn't going to work. But you're going to have to take out, maybe you go back over here, and this is where you go with like, I don't know, whoever you want to pick. Austin Meadows, who's going to get no love at the captain spot because there's a lefty on the mound. And then grab Seager, Betts, or Rosarina, Bellinger, whatever you can figure out to do. You're going to have to skip somebody somewhere. Like, I can get on board, but I feel like, for me, like, that's just flushing my money down the toilet. So I would never actually make that lineup.
Yeah, I would play Kershaw, Glasnow, and then maybe not like, Betts or Seager, but like a Muncy or Turner, if I can make it work, with like a reliever or two. Because like I said, I think a reliever or two could get you 0 and you're still fine there, especially if the one hitter you use hits a home run.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of theories you could play out because there's so many guys I'm playing, you can only roster 6 of them.
Yes.
But if it was my money, and you know that like I hate GPPs for showdowns, so I play cash games on showdowns specifically. I throw the money in a small GPP, but it's not the goal of what I'm trying to do. I'm going to play both starting pitchers because, again, even if they're not great, they're still better than most of the hitters, unless they're absolutely terrible, which I'm not going to bet on Glasnow and Kershaw, both the strikeout upside to be just terrible.
No doubt about it.
Like Glasnow can go 5 innings, strike out 6, give up 4 runs. He's still better than most hitters.
No doubt about that. I mean, unless all 4 of those runs come off home runs.
Yeah, for sure. So even then, there's just 4 home runs, right? They're still better than a bunch of the hitters.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I wish you guys, again, the best of luck of it. For those of you who need to hear it, I've said it twice. I'll say it again. If you come on a rough streak, and for me, the rough part of the last 2 weeks is not losing. I can take losing on DFS. I've done it a million different nights before, and it'll happen again. It's all the 1 and 2 point losses or last-second losses on one specific play that really hurt, and you end up chasing. I told you guys, like, when we got back from quarantine, I had like $30 in my DraftKings account and like churned that into a little over 1,500, which I was like really proud of. But then to give back, like a quarter of that over like 2 or 3 days it's a rookie mistake. And I don't feel good about it. And sometimes instead of chasing again tonight, take the night off, go read a book, go do a few hundred push-ups, just do something, just kind of walk away and like get that bitter taste out your mouth.
Yeah. I like this slate, so that's not the advice I would take, but I get it. I mean, that's all. And you got to just view it like the next slate, but I feel your pain.
Yeah. Just again, like I used to play poker for a lot of money online back in the day. And I hate when I would make like $3,000 over 5 days, grinding out good victories, and then come home and dunk off $2,000 after a couple drinks or just on a stupid like chase. because you put in all this hard work and then you give it all away. And you're better suited in that position. Go to bed. It'll all be there tomorrow. I know we have less sports going right now, but there's new slates. And if you like this one, obviously do what you're doing and play it. But if you don't really love it, just take a day off.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely very difficult to do, no doubt about it.
Sure, that's the discipline that I feel like not enough DFS providers need to just bring up every once in a while. That's, we're all gamblers by nature, and we've all chased before. And when you chase after a rough loss and you give it away, it's hard to the next morning you're like, that was so stupid.
So stupid.
And I've done it a million times, and I'm sure I'll do it again, but I'm talking myself into it right now.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like you like this slate very much. I think there's edges to be had. I'm still going to stick to my 3-entry max, and hopefully if people go try to roster all these hitters, I'm going to stick to the pitching. And if it's a really low scoring game, I think, and one of my relievers comes in and does good, I think I'm in a real good spot. I won't be the only one that thinks this. I know that also.
Yeah. And that's what's hard about showdown slates when you're trying to get the GPP edge.
Right.
Is I think it's a little easier in baseball because you have more options than
it's just so random.
Yeah. Again, Manuel Margot, you put him in your captain spot and he homers twice. You're one of the few people that has that.
And I also think it's such a big ownership. Ownership is so big because let's say you mentioned Kevin Kiermaier and Yandy Diaz. Let's say they're the same price, but Yandy Diaz is coming in 30% owned, Kiermaier 5% owned. I mean, give me Kiermaier. It's baseball.
Is he more likely to succeed? No. Is he 1/6 as likely to succeed? No. He's more likely than that.
Way more likely than that. It's probably a relatively it's probably closer than you first think when you look at them.
Well, we've talked about this, and the biggest extreme we could think of is Mike Trout versus the crappiest hitter on the Angels in the A spot.
Right.
Mike Trout's still only probably 4-1 to outscore him. And 4-1 is a nice odds, and this is the biggest extreme. But 20% comes through a lot. And if you've ever played poker and the odds of when you get an underpair versus an overpair, it feels like it should be a lock, but that 18% seems to hit way more than you'd ever expect.
I would love to know what the odds is, because I would say he's more likely to outscore him 3 times.
So you're thinking more 75-25?
Yes.
Which is not far off from my 80%. We're in the same ballpark.
Yes.
And that's the biggest extreme right there. We're talking about the best player in the game versus the worst player on his team. But when you talk about Yandy Diaz and Kevin Kiermaier, they ain't even close to that kind of discrepancy. But on the ownership, it is going to be a huge discrepancy.
Yes, exactly. Precisely.
All right, guys. Good luck tonight.
Thank you.